All right, everybody. It is Thursday. So we are doing, guess what? The IAG Thursday thing. This thing that we do every Thursday where we try to hang out, talk to people, not sound like morons, and basically just have a good time. One of my favorite things to do when we do this show is talk to different people around the community. And you see a lot of the same people talking on social media and stuff like that. And sometimes it's fun to get them out from behind the keyboard and actually talk to them directly. A lot of these people are pretty OG. They've been around a minute, and it's really refreshing to talk to them, and a lot of them work in the industry, and this is why we have this segment called Talking Shop, where I try to find a particular personality in the community. Usually somebody who works for a shop, most of the time an IAG shop, and we sit down and chat about what's going on in their neck of the woods, and talk shop. So today we have Ryan from Turbotime. Turbotime is a shop down in North Carolina that deals mostly with Subarus, but they've got kind of an interesting background. We're going to chat about that for a little bit. And Ryan himself has been around for a pretty long time, and he's one of the I don't want to call him more vocal, but he tends to he tends to vocalize the truth more than most. So I figured he'd be a good time to have on here. And yeah, we can, chat it up. You guys can meet some new people, and you might accidentally learn something. Oh God. So welcome to the show, Ryan. How you doing?
Good, man. Thank you much.
So you work at Turbotime.
Yep.
Let's talk about Turbotime.
In Sanford. Yeah, go
We're
for
already bad at this.
Sorry.
All right,
I will do my best not to talk over you.
I got you. Where's Turbotime?
We are in Sanford, North Carolina. We started in Wake County in Cary. Moved a few years ago. If we're gonna get into stories, that's a big long one later. But yeah, we're actually in a 1964 Firestone now. We're pretty happy. We kind of got thrown into the briar patch, and we're happy with the result. So
I don't know much about Sanford. Is that still kind of a suburb of Raleigh? Oh, that's a ways out, a little further. You're almost between Raleigh and Fayetteville. Okay.
Yep, exactly. It's 2 counties down. Like, I still live in Cary, so I have to make that drive every day. It's not very fun. But yeah, we Wake County became a little bit difficult to have a shop of our size several years ago. You're finding a lot of places like ours that are more specialized are starting to move away. There's just the spaces of this kind of size aren't really available. Even smaller stuff is starting to go away. There's some politics to that. But yeah, we ended up down here a few years ago, just kind of at the last possible minute. We needed a place to move. We found this place on a Monday, signed the lease on a Friday, already had the old shop packed up on Wednesday, and the moving trucks couldn't actually bring anything until Sunday. So it was a pretty interesting week. But yeah, we ended up in Sanford about 5 years ago.
So
yeah, it really is. All of Wake County, Durham, Orange, all of that is just, it's all blowing up. But Wake County especially, like, that's one of the most, I mean, they're growing faster than any other county in North Carolina.
I don't doubt it a bit. Yeah, Raleigh was already kind of a cool city when I was around. I was stationed in Jacksonville.
Oh, you at Lejeune?
I was at Lejeune, my guy.
Yeah, nice, man. Yeah. Hell yeah, nice.
Yeah, we used to go out to Vietnam all the time and race the Army boys and take all their money.
Yes,
and then
yeah, of course.
Yep, back in the day, dude.
Oh.
That was with my nice. Sweet
so you were
Del
the guys
Sol
coming to town. Oh, I was going to ask you what you would bring down to Fayetteville. Nice. Yeah, so you probably raced at least one of my friends at some point. Had a friend with a Type R, buddy with a Black Widow kit on a Civic Si with a good bit of nitrous. So yeah, you guys probably crossed paths.
Oh man, dude, we would go out there and we would destroy these guys, but we had a fairly organized group, and we'd
Did
bring
you guys
everything
did you
from
guys go
at
out
the
to
time, which was a nutcase Supra, and we would bring the nutcase Supra all the way down to I'd be cleaning up on the side. It was all side action for me because I was running around.
yes,
The dude had like a 1,000 wheel horsepower Supra when 1,000 wheel horsepower wasn't a thing. I'd be
was it
bringing out my
oh dude, the dude that worked at the audio store and had the alphabet soup, it was a black car. Was it a black Supra or was it white? Was it the
He's
white
had
one?
a couple of them. Well, no, he had a green one that burned to the ground. Then he had a white one.
Yes,
That's Rich Homer. Yeah,
he's
unfortunately, he passed.
yes, yes. Did he really?
Yeah, that was
I never knew that.
that's
Wow.
Majestic Motorsports is the name of that shop out in Jacksonville, or near
Yes, yeah.
Jacksonville. And he
I did
passed,
not know he
unfortunately.
passed.
Yeah,
Wow.
he was that guy was
did
a
not know that.
legend in our day. He owned like 5 stereo shops, and that's how he funded all this stuff, which is what you do around. Yeah,
He sold
that was Rich
in
Homer.
like 19. No, let's see. It was like 2002. He sold his whole alphabet soup setup, like tuned and everything, for about 600 horsepower to my buddy Chris with his red Supra, and I put all the stuff on. It was like a T66 and the whole HKS Apex, all of the alphabet soup stuff. And it was all set up. All the dials were already turned, so we just plugged it in and dynoed it. Yeah. Oh man, I didn't know he had passed. That's crazy.
Yeah,
I did my EFI 101 dyno class at Majestic.
We went out to a drag event out near Fayetteville that was ran at the track instead of on the street.
Of course.
And it was one of those that runs all night kind of things.
Yeah.
And like 3 in the morning, his original car, 3 in the morning thing catches on fire, and they couldn't put it out at the track. They had to call so it burned to the ground while they were waiting for the fire truck from town to come in. Yeah, that was Rich Homer's car.
Wow. Yeah.
I know, crazy times,
that
right?
Exact Freaky Friday. Yeah, for real. Like, man, it ends up being a really small world for me a lot. Like,
yeah,
that's wild. Man, yeah,
that was my stomping grounds, dude.
Oh yeah, that's awesome though. Like, that's fantastic. You guys came down to Fayetteville all the time. That's fantastic. I love it. Yeah, I man, some of my favorite like goofball drag strip memories are like walking around Fayetteville like on a Freaky Friday at like 2 a.m. talking shit, just like setting up side races. I had a buddy named Ira that had a doo-doo brown Camaro with like a small block in it with like one overboard cylinder and like a diesel turbo and a ton of nitrous. And he would like sandbag like runs and then set people up to go do highway pulls like afterwards and just collect cash. He will race RC cars. Like he had a stripes laid out for a scale quarter mile at like a Lowe's parking lot, and he would race like nitro RC cars for money. Like he's that kind of dude. So yeah, those are some of my favorite memories. Is like late Friday night at all right. So this Forester that my buddy Scott had, it was an automatic 05 XT with VF22 on it. And like I want to say the Turbo XS Game Boy on it.
The old boost controller, Turbo XS boost controller that used a Game Boy Advance for.
Yes, this is the Game Boy Advance. It was also technically a fuel controller too, I think. But either way, no. He didn't have the controller. He had the stupid little click button on the left side with the dial counter to tell you what map you were on. So yeah, it was ridiculous. We went down there and he did like 3 runs that night and just wasn't super happy. And it was like, man, that car's already running like kind of lowish 11s. Like that's not bad. Like for an automatic, mostly stock Forester XT with like an HKS downpipe and a VF22. Yeah. I mean, it was, dude, what more do you want? Like you're getting everything you can get out of this car. He went over and pulled the wastegate hose off of like the reference hose off of the turbo and then went and did another pull. So he boosts it at the line, brake boosts it like he normally had, but now it made all of the boosts that a VF22 could make. And it just split the 4EAT at the cast iron plate in the middle. Like he didn't even move. It went like 6 inches. It was just like, and then just exploded. And there was a giant puddle under the ground. And the 2 people I was with were like, what just happened? I was like, just go push the car. Come on, we got to go push it back. And it was
She
just
done.
dumped all of the gear, all of the gear lube, all of the ATF, and he drove it down there, and we didn't have another ride back, so we had to wait for a buddy of ours who was down there with his Turbo IS to drive back to his house, get his trailer and truck, and come back and pick us up. It was ridiculous, but it's still one of my favorite memories. It's a good story.
Man, I mean, those like I broke it and I'm stuck stories are some of the most interesting. I got a few of those that are ridiculous. So let's chat about Turbotime real quick. Let's get through some of the business. So you guys are now in Sanford, North Carolina.
Yeah. Yep. We started in Cary, and like you mentioned, we started off with like cyclone and typhoon stuff. That's actually how I met the previous owner.
For you Gen Z who have no idea what we're talking about, because cyclones and typhoons, I'm pretty sure the majority of the people in here will know, but if somebody's listening, you don't know what they are. Essentially, they were in the late 80s, early 90s, GM decided, hey, we're going to stick a turbo V6 with all-wheel drive inside of an S10 and a Blazer, and we're going to make these street monsters for no reason whatsoever. And they are awesome, but they're very rare. Yeah, literally just to piss off everybody else. I love those things so much.
It's so much fun. Like Corvette guys love to hate them, because that year you get to remind them that it was like, hey, it was technically faster than your Corvette was with a small block in it. They love that shit. Well, at least the guys that have that generation of Corvette, like they're the most fun to play with. So, but we started off with those. Eric, like the whole reason I met him was because I was at a dealership in Chapel Hill, Performance, Chevrolet, Subaru, BMW, and Porsche. And a Cyclone came through as a used car.
Did you say Chevrolet and Porsche? That was all in one dealership?
Yes, it was
who
one
the
of
hell set that?
Rick
Can
Hendrick.
You imagine I'm going to buy a Chevy Corsica and maybe I'll cross shop this 911?
Oh yeah. No, it was Rick Hendrick, the brainchild of Rick Hendrick. Yeah.
Oh yeah, I mean,
man. Yeah,
the guy's a madman.
Chevrolet. Yeah. Oh, he is. Oh yes, dude. They had stories. When I got there, it didn't happen, but he would still come and do his visit once a year. But before I got there, when he had first started the place, before they built across the street on 15501, he would land his helicopter across the street to do his yearly visits. And land his helicopter, come and hang out with the employees, and then head out on his helicopter back to Charlotte. He's that dude. So yeah, that was his brainchild, was this mega dealer, one of the first kind of all-in-one auto malls, especially in that area. So yeah, it actually had a Saturn dealer too. It had the first Saturn dealer in North Carolina. So yeah, a little bit of everything. But by the time I got there, they were selling a lot of Corvettes, but the dealership in Cary sold more. And so apparently someone decided they had to have a C5 Z06, and they traded it a Cyclone to get it. And our dealer got it because our used car sales manager thought he already had 2 or 3 guys sort of lined up. And so he ran it through the shop one evening, so none of the other techs would see it. But one of my buddies that was a Chevrolet guy was like, hey, we're getting a Cyclone tonight. You want to stay around and look at it? I was like, yeah, I'll be here anyway. So yeah, let's take a look at that truck. So we get it in the air, we're looking at it, and the used car guy comes out and he's gloating. He's like, yeah, I didn't pay shit to get this thing. That's great. And we're like, oh, nice. Yeah, this thing's in really great condition. 16,000 miles. This thing's beautiful. Yeah, this is great. Hey, so how much did you say you paid for it? And he's like, da 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 da. I was like, oh, awesome. So I want to invoke my 7% over employee cost option right now. He was like, what now? I was like, yeah, I want to go ahead and buy this Cyclone for my employee price. He was like, oh, no, you can't do that. I was like, yes, I can. And you already told me what you paid for it. So here we go. And so, yeah, I ended up getting a Cyclone for $14,000. Yeah, nice. At a time we were closer to 19. Yes. Yeah, super minty. beautiful truck. Gave it to my dad, and then it had cyclone problems. And so, I'm in a Chevrolet dealer. I thought I could figure out, hey, I grew up on old shitty GM stuff. I can figure this thing out. And most of the time, yeah, like it immediately needed a fuel pump. And then like it needed door lock actuators. I mean, it started needing dumb shit like the door pins, from 1991 were starting to get a little loose. So I started stacking up all these parts and stuff and got my dad to bring it back. And in the meantime, one of the guys from the BMW side, this guy Derek, was like, hey, you got to meet this dude that has like 3 of these. I was like, there ain't nobody that has 3 of these trucks. And he was like, no, there's a dude in Cary that has 3 of these trucks right now. And he also makes parts for them. I'm like, what now? So I ended up meeting this dude, drove all the way to Cary one afternoon. And he's like, plugs in his little ALDL cable in his laptop. And he's like, yeah. This thing's running like shit. It's on the wrong plugs. Looks like the wrong injectors. Hey, this is a reman engine. Did you know that? No, I didn't. I didn't see those seals. Oh, this is great. He's like, yeah, I think it's the wrong reman engine too. So we were already starting to like hit it off on the fact that like this truck wasn't quite what it needed to be, but it was fun. But yeah, that ended up turning into he built a shop because he couldn't find anybody else to help him work on the trucks. And he knew I had one. And so he more or less suckered me into helping him build a bunch of other trucks and develop parts.
Ain't that how it always happens though?
Yeah, pretty much. It was great. It ended up working out really well. Like it was always a great time. I eventually, unfortunately, totaled that particular truck on a Honda Element one night. So that sucked. But I still have it. It's actually about 50 feet from me in a somewhat sad state. But one day we'll revive it. Like I promised my dad before he died, we'll get it back together. So
you got to get that thing together, dude. Those things are so rare now. They're so rare.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah, I'm on a bunch of the SciTi registry pages and stuff still. People know me as Iru's friend because it was Iru, like he was the man for a long time.
Yeah.
It was really funny actually. One of the guys that is one of the big names now, this guy Sean Krupa, who's really great. He's kind of the guy you're gonna take it to if you need a restoration or like he has an LS tie and a 4.3 Cyclone, like a built 4.3. So he dabbles in a little bit of everything those dudes want, and it's all great. But yeah, he posted something the other day, kind of ranting about some of the same stuff I tend to do. That like when non-specialists take on really specialist stuff, and then they kind of hack it up. That was one of the things that drove Eric to start making parts. Was like everybody assumed all this redneck knowledge would apply to this like 4.3 turbo truck, and it was like, a bunch of that shit don't work. Like you can't just slap this 4.3 together like a small block and expect it
Holly double pumper on it. No,
yeah, dude. He took his first engine to like this redneck hot rod shop to build an engine, and it lasted like 6,000 miles before it was just knocking all over the place. And he found this dude named Richard that actually used to work for Hendrick as an engine developer. And this dude, like, he's retired because of all of the heavy metals poisoning over the years. Because he was around in the '60s when they were first starting to play with all of the fun shit like Inconel valves and all this stuff. Here we're gonna make these valve seats out of this crazy alloy, and like we're gonna grind it with no mask. Fine. Yes, exactly. Yeah, he has like some nondescript heavy metals poisoning that like. He's essentially disabled. But he basically was like, hey, I'll as a favor to your uncle, I'll help you put a 4.3 together, get me some cores. It took him a year and a half to build the first engine. He went through 7 machine shops, like for different tasks. And a lot of that knowledge was what he kind of passed on to Eric. Was like, hey, look, your machine shop is only as good as what you can tell them to do. And he was like, and more importantly, you should only pick a machine shop based on asking several very specific questions about what you're trying to get done. So like we did 4-bolt mains on that first block. Like we did these billet 4-bolt main caps where they're splayed. So you have to drill the holes, but then you have to go back and line haul. he had one machine shop do the drill function, and then a second machine shop out in New Bern. It was the only place he called that knew they had to offset the line hone in the direction of the caps. Like, so yeah, he built this crazy $17,000 Cyclone 4.3, and it was just ridiculous. And then that got sold to some dudes in Newfoundland. No, Netherlands. Yeah, Netherlands. Those dudes were on YouTube actually with that engine. They put it in. They had it in a Disco Vet that was all-wheel drive, had a Cyclone's driveline in it, and then they had an Astro van with a Cyclone driveline in it with that engine. They just like to put shit together
that sounds
every
like a
year.
party.
Oh, dude, the Astro was the coolest one because they did like a drag run that was like a 9-second pull with like 4 people in it. It was fantastic.
Man, we can't talk about sci-tie
Yeah,
stuff all day. Long story short, Eric starts this shop based off sci-tie stuff, making parts for sci-ties, working on sci-ties. But the reality of it is, as much as you and I both love these cars, there ain't too many.
There ain't enough of them. Nah, there's not enough to sustain a shop.
So
no, the Subaru.
When did you? What was your background with Subarus, and how did you get pulled into this?
So when I was in design school, I did like a project where I had to like compare a bunch of shit, and I designed this little car. It was a all-wheel drive Civic rally car. But so the research side of it was supposed to be like this whole research thing. So the research side of it was find your benchmark cars. And so I was like, here, Evo Zero Fighter, and then the 22B, and then their rally counterparts. And so I was like, here would be the road version of this Civic Type R all-wheel drive, and then here's what they could run as a WRC car, and did renderings and all that kind of fun stuff. Sure. And so I was already kind of into WRC stuff, but I really just kind of doubled down and got way into all of the WRC, Colin McRae, Tommy Mäkinen, all of the rivalry stuff that was going on in like 98, 99. Richard Burns, like all of the drama with a bunch of that. So yeah, it was just, that's where I got started. I fell in love with that particular body style, like a lot of people. And I was like, hey, Subaru was supposed to bring us a WRX, right? Sport compact car, had that test mule that they drove around in like 99. So I was like, yeah, we're finally gonna get a turbo Subaru. I was waiting, chomping at the bit. And then 6 months into, like, it was like July of 2001, July of 2000, I finally saw the final production shots of the Bug Eye, and I know you love the Bug Eye, and I know I'm gonna be extra controversial.
Dude, everybody was sad when they saw the Bug Eye the first time.
Yeah, there you go.
Mean,
like nail on the head.
We were used to seeing.
That's it.
We were so excited because we thought what we were used to seeing was like the 2.5 RS. It had like vents and crazy looking wing, and like it looked
like a version 6.
It looked crazy. If you think about it, it looked. And then here's this thing that like unfortunately looked like a bulbous Dodge Neon. And we were like, what? This is what they're shitting on us? No, it grew on me. It grew on me fast.
Eventually. I have to have more.
I remember the first time I saw the WRX, before I had ever seen the STI version of it, and I was angry. I was angry.
Yeah. Like I say, they had this like whole photo spread in some UK magazine, and I was just like, oh no, I'm good. And the other thing is like I grew up in coupes, so like I was like, man, why does it need those extra doors? I don't quite need those. So I immediately went and decided, I was like, man, I'm gonna look into getting a 2.5 RS coupe, and then I'll put a damn engine in it. So I started down that path, and by like October, I ordered a Blue Ridge Pearl 2.5 RS. And then it was like, yeah, it'll be 6 to 10 weeks. It's usually 6. And that's what the dealer said. So 10 weeks later, I started calling him. I was like, hey, what's going on? No, we haven't heard anything. March of that year, they finally called me, and they're like, well, the 2.5 RS you ordered is here. And I was like, oh, awesome. I will be there today. They're like, wait. I was like, what do you mean, wait? They're like, well, it's the one you ordered technically. and it does have a production date of 2001. And I was like, okay, what are you?
They gave
getting
you
to
an
here?
01.
It's a
They gave you an
Bug-Eye.
02 RS.
Yes,
Oh, I'd be
yes,
so mad.
Gave me a Bug-Eye RS in Blue Ridge Pearl, and they even had the shifter and the gauges I ordered.
Swap out like slimy absolute shit for we're gonna slap. It's gonna be chocolate for shit was what that trade was.
Yes.
That sucks,
Yes.
man. Oh,
that was great. And then, so I showed up and was like, really awesome. I was like, so what are we gonna do about this? You guys told me you couldn't locate one. They were like, well, we already started. We think we found one. It's like over in Charlotte. And I was like, okay, cool. They were like, we'll have it on Friday. So they call me again on Friday. And I was like, awesome. Can I come get the car this Saturday? They're like, wait, no. What now? We got the car in, and yeah, the sales manager screwed up. It's a sedan. It's a 2001 2.5 RS sedan with the options you wanted, but it's a sedan. I was like, yeah, no, I don't need those extra doors. So can you find the coupe? So they found a coupe in Virginia the next week. And then I was like, okay, it's in Virginia. They're like, yeah. I was like, should I just go get it? They're like, no. We'll get it transported down here. We're going to take care of all that stuff. I was like, okay, fine. And then like Friday afternoon at like 7 p.m., the sales guy calls. He was like, yeah, the car just got here. So if you want to come in tomorrow and pick it up, we should be fine to do that. And he intentionally did that late so I couldn't answer the phone. So I go the next morning and I get there, and here's this sales manager, like 10 a.m. I actually woke up early on a Saturday to go get this car. So this dude's like, yeah, hey, what's going on? What are you here for? I was like, yeah, I'm here to pick up my car. The guy's like, what do you mean? I was like, well, where's Ray Lampley, first of all, and then I'm here to pick up this 2.5 RS coupe. And he's like, oh, you're the guy. I was like, wait, what do you mean I'm the guy? He's like, you're the guy that's been in so much trouble. I was like, I'm not the one that ordered a car wrong twice. He was like, are you the guy that did that twice? And he was like, well, I'm the sales manager. I was like, so you are the one that did that twice. And I was like, where's my damn car? The general manager comes out. Was like, it's in the back. Just come back here with me. You sit back down in your little tower. And so he takes me back to see the car, and it's dusty as hell. I'm like, cool. Please don't wash it. He's like, okay, yeah, no problem. There you go. I was like, well, can I take it home today? No, we don't have a state inspector here today. Okay. Well, how is that my problem? I'll just bring it back. He's like, no, we can't even deliver it. We can't start paperwork without that. Okay, when can I come get my car that I have now waited 5 months for? He's like, well, come in Monday after about 4:00 and we should be good to go. I was like, okay, don't wash it. And I was like, can I sit in it, start it, whatever? He's like, nah. I don't know where the keys are. And I was like, oh, they're right here on this toolbox. And I just went over and picked up the keys, started up. Had like 256 miles on it, so I got to yell at him about driving my car before it was even registered. So yeah, it was a lot of fun. And I got the RS and ordered a 98 STI EJ20K front clip that the importers near me got in. And then it showed up, and it wasn't an STI. It was an RA. It was a WRX RA with a bunch of STI parts on it. And then they dropped it in transport, so it bent most of the cool STI parts on it and damaged the engine. So they gave me like an EJ20G as compensation for screwing up the K. And so it took me several years to finally get all of that sorted out. But yeah, so my big plans sort of fell apart, but I still ended up with the correct number of doors and an RS. So
you got yourself a coupe, and you finally got it swapped.
Yeah.
Okay.
It took me several years. I ended up I had a job at a design place that didn't work out. I ended up at a shitty transmission shop for about 6 months. I tried to apply for a job as a lube tech at one of the two dealers near me. There was Performance in Chapel Hill, and there was Southern States in Raleigh. Southern States is where I actually bought the car. I knew the lead tech there because I had talked to him a few times because I was a little bit of a thorn. I made like an intake for the stupid car before I got the swap in because I was just like, I have to do something. And when I went to get it inspected the next year, he was like trying to fail me for it. I was like, that doesn't affect any of the emissions equipment. We had to have this whole discussion. So I knew him a little bit. We had talked a bunch after that, but I'd kind of poked around and was like, hey, if I were to apply there, he was like, I mean, you can apply, but we're not really hiring. He was like, there's only 2 of us. I was like, oh, okay, well, all right, good enough. Applied over at Performance. They kind of said the same thing. So I put in 6 months at this shitty transmission shop, slinging like R&R.
Yeah, there was a time when you couldn't just walk into a place and get a job.
No,
People don't remember that.
No. Like, yeah, that was the whole thing. Like, I couldn't get a design job. That wasn't a thing. That was.
If you have a pulse right now, like you can get a job.
Yeah, exactly. Especially like a tech job. There's a tech shortage. Like, if you walk around town, some shop will hire you. So I got the shitty transmission shop job, put in 6 months, and then went back to the 2 dealers. And Performance called me back. And the biggest thing was, I went to the interview, and they were like, we brought you in for the interview. Service manager was like, we brought you in for the interview because supposedly you have a little bit of experience with Subarus already. I was like, yeah, I drove the car that I swapped. And he's like, oh, okay. I don't know what any of those words really mean, but do you think some of my technicians might know? And so he ended up having to bring in, and he brought in the oldest guy, this dude that ended up being my mentor and like one of my friends, this dude, Bill Green, who's just this salty old 350-pound, 20-plus year veteran technician. He just saunters over to this dude's office, and the guy's like, hey, this guy wants to apply for Subaru. He thinks he knows a few things. Quiz him a little bit. The guy was like, oh, well, what do you think you know? And I was like, well, I don't know. I put this Japanese engine in this car that's out there. I did the wiring for it. It was kind of a shit show. Took me a few years to put it all together, get parts for it, blah, blah, blah. He was like, oh, I don't know anything about that JDM shit. He was like, so what else do you think you know? I was like, well, I really want to come here because of the new STI that's coming out. You know, I really like the WRXs. I really, kind of want to get some experience working on those cars, but I'm really excited about the STI. He's like, I don't know what you're talking about. I was like, oh, okay. Well, this year, middle of 03, we should be getting the 04 STI, and here's all the specs. And he was like, yeah, you know what? Just hire him. He gets all the wings and turbos. And I was like, oh, cool. So that was my job description.
So he gets all the wings. And
all the wings and turbos.
That's really what that was. He gets all the wings and turbos.
I got all the wings and turbos because the old dudes hated all that shit. Like, all the way back to they remembered the 91 Legacy. And they were like, idiots couldn't put the right gas in those cars.
You got to think of Subarus during the 90s, okay?
Oh,
First off, if they came in for anything, it was stupid easy to work on. Stupid easy to work on. If you think of a 1.8 liter, like L, that thing was stupid easy to work on. And then,
then 2.5s, they were used to doing reseals on 25Ds. That was their gravy.
Those guys are doing it. The gravy was clutches and head gasket jobs for those guys, and they were just slaying it.
Exactly.
Yeah. So this turbo WRX thing hits, and they're like, I don't even want to touch that shit. They, because they're just trying to get their 60, 70 hour book time a week, and
it was a completely different customer, and they were. Let's be honest. It's a different customer base, and they are a fucking handful for regular Outback Forester service riders and technicians.
Especially if they start coming in with aftermarket crap.
Oh yes.
We get calls from dealerships all the time just asking us about stuff like, what is this little iPhone looking thing in here?
Oh yes, I remember those. I remember getting a bunch of those. The best part was at Performance, once I'd been there for a month or so, I was like, hey, look, I don't have a place to tinker on my stuff. And they're like, yeah, you can work. It's fine. Just run it through as an oil change. And then it turned into, well, hey, the dudes, frankly, at down in Alpharetta, sort of started, but also ruined dealerships having a relationship with Cobb or tuning in any way.
Yeah.
They had already started doing you could buy a WRX and then they would sell you an access port and do OTS maps on it. And that was all fine until about 04, when they pro-tuned an STI and it blew up and the dude ran it back through warranty and then they tried to cover it. And it all just blew up in their face. But, prior to that, this is 03. I'd been there a little while. I was like, hey, so, I've not taken advantage of the situation working on my own stuff. Do do you mind if I do a couple of small things for some other people? I'll run them through the shop. And they were like, no, you will not. You will run them through as an oil change, and then you do whatever the hell you want, but you do it after hours and don't tell us about any of it. I was like, oh, okay,
even better.
good enough. So, yeah,
Can do.
exactly. I ended up doing like a bunch of random crazy stuff, like JDM 205s before they were a thing, and like had to figure out harnesses to go to the, like, here's the engine, here's the ECM, here's like some cut-off
Do you remember
wires.
how cheap 207s and 6-speeds were back in the day?
Holy shit, yes.
Dude,
yes.
people don't remember.
Oh
you could get it. You could get a 207
dropout.
$1,500 to your door.
Yeah.
It was
and
unreal.
$1,500 more for the trans, and all the way out to Brembos.
Yeah, you spent a full $3,000, you can get the whole thing, and another 500 to 7, and they'll throw the Brembos in too.
Yep, exactly. Yep. Yeah, I ended up doing a bunch of that kind of random stuff, like it, after hours. And that sort of started it all. Like I say, Eric called me one night and was like, "Hey, look, what kind of lift do you like?" Like, oh, I don't know. What are you even asking me? I don't know. Just what kind of lift do you like? Rotary 10,000 pound or 12. I'd like the asymmetrical dual controls if you're springing. He's like, oh, okay. I just needed to look up the specs to pour concrete. He was like, turns out he was designing his little shop. So our first shop was on a piece of land that he purchased to put a house on, and then he thumbed his nose at the town of Cary and built a 3-bay shop with like one side that had a man door, and then 2 big bay doors, and called it a house. And they hated that shit, but they had to permit it because it followed all the rules of a house with a big ass garage. So it wasn't technically an outbuilding. And then the other thing that Cary doesn't like is you doing mechanical side work. They don't really like any of that. There were a few times where the parking lot got a little too crowded.
This straight up sounds like the Schaumburg, Illinois of North Carolina. It sounds like they've gotten really, really persnickety around there. That's sucks, man.
It's an HOA, man. Like Cary as a town is an HOA. They're the ones that McDonald's, the only McDonald's in the country that didn't have a red and gold sign for a little while, was in Cary because they were in a district that required them to have a neutral colored sign. So that McDonald's had a green and gray sign. Like dumb shit. So that's Cary.
So weird.
Yeah. You can do whatever you want on your own property, behind your house, or in your little shed there, or whatever, as long as it isn't working on cars. So yeah, the police came a couple times because the lady at the bottom of the hill bitched about people dropping off cars late, or whatever. But yeah, we ended up having to move. So this was all. We're all still doing this on the side, right? I moved to a different dealer I left Performance and went to Southern States, but we were still doing it on the side. I'd actually moved in with Eric by then. Me and my girlfriend had a falling out, so I moved from Pittsburgh, moved in with him in Cary. And then he was like, "Hey, I'm gonna build this shop first. I'm gonna build a house, and then you can move in with me to that house." But no, I ended up just buying the house because I didn't want to move again. So that was great for a little while. I went to a third dealer, Johnson Subaru and Cary, and helped them start the place. Like it was actually on a recommendation from my district rep, like field service rep. I'd already been going with him to like other dealerships and helping sort out some turbo car related problems. One of the biggest things was it seemingly took technicians a handful of years to figure out like how to measure valve clearances correctly. Like especially one dealer down south and east of me, their older technician, like I had to literally go down there and explain to him why he had to do valve clearances on a WRX or a turbo engine. Because we had a bunch of comeback.
Let's go back to this. It isn't that they couldn't learn; it's they didn't want to.
Yeah, that was it. When I was still at Performance, like I did the first warranty WRX engine in the Southeast, and this was the rule that like told these dudes everything that you're saying. Like, hey, we don't want to fuck with these cars because the owners are assholes. So this, it's an 02, or no, it was an 03. It had really low miles on it. Came in like March of 03. Guys like, yeah, it's blown up. He had to tow it in. It's rod knock. We're like, okay, well, the district rep at that time was, he's an Outback guy. So he's just like, yeah, cover it. Like, no questions asked. If something comes in like that, absolutely, that's got to be a defect. Damn sure it couldn't have been user caused. So put an engine.
Well, they didn't have a whole lot of that at that point anyway. Like,
no, exactly. They hadn't really
Subaru
experienced
one extreme to the other. They're like, we'll cover anything. We don't give a shit. We ain't touching anything that's got a turbocharger on it. You fucked it up. It's your fault.
No, it's at least they're gonna pull whatever the key cycles to see if it's been flashed and all of that sort of fun stuff. And look, I'm gonna be blunt. Like, I am a former dealer technician. I sympathize with all of that. Like, they don't get paid enough to do your engine if you modded it and blew it up.
If you modded it and blew it up,
if it's stock, suck it up. Suck it up. Fix that car.
The people who get mad about that, it aggravates me to no end. You know what I mean? Absolutely aggravates me to no end. That they mod the crap out of the car, and then they demod it to go take it in to get it covered under warranty, and then when they go no,
they get upset.
They're mad. Like, you're in
to be fair,
the wrong.
like, the flip side is that yes, asshole technicians exist, and they will try to not cover stuff that they probably should because they just don't want to not get paid for it. So I mean, it's the balancing act. Like, there's shitbags everywhere on both sides. Is what it is. But yeah, I ended up doing like the first WRX, and we got it all back together and had some other random issues with it, and I was trying to diagnose those. And for some reason, I went through the trunk and was like, hey, what the hell? And then I looked at the center console, and there's a hole in one of the trim panels. And then I kind of looked around, and I found the fucking nitrous hose. So I kind of lost my shit a little bit. I was like, hey, did no one notice the bottle mount holes or the switch hole or any of the nitrous stuff in this car before they decided to cover this engine? And everybody just kind of scratched their heads. And I was like, oh, awesome. So nobody knows what they're looking at. Great. So it was fine. The car got covered. But a few months later, actually at my second sandblast, the second sandblast I went to, I actually crewed for this guy, Bob Wall. And we're setting up, and here's this black WRX, and it pulls up, and it's got a very unique front license plate. And I was like, I know that car. And the guy gets out, and walking around, and he's talking to everybody. And I'm finishing setting everything up. Comes over. He's like, hey, are you crewing for Bob? I was like, yep, I'm technically, I guess, the crew chief this race. I don't know. Like, I just we're kind of figuring it out as we go. He's like, oh, okay, well, if you need a hand or whatever, I can help out. I was like, well, no, it doesn't really work like that. You're going to have to go register. He's like, oh, yeah, okay, yeah, no problem. He was like, well, like I say, though, if you need a hand or with anything, I know my way around a Subaru. I was like, oh, do you? I was like, that's yours? He's like, yeah. I was like, oh, yeah, I know that car. I had to put the engine back in that thing after you blew it up. How much nitrous were you spraying? And was it a dry shot or a wet shot? And he was like, what? What are you talking about? Like, just tell me what happened. And he was like, well, okay, so I took it to Fayetteville for Freaky Friday, and I had a 50 dry shot on it, and we just stuck it in the throttle body coupler, and it didn't survive the first run. I was like, yeah, fuck you, dude. I was like, no, I definitely won't be asking you for any help. See you later.
So you sounds like you kind of became the dealership guy around there, and then you ended up getting in with Eric, and then so Turbotime kind of turned into a super. When did you guys start like more marketing towards Subarus then? Like, what was the time frame for that?
2005, 6 kind of range.
It wasn't too far after I had left there, and people were telling me that I was still talking to down there. They're like, "Oh yeah, there's this shop out, yada yada, Turbotime," and I'm like, I never even heard of you guys. But that was a million years ago.
Oh yeah. And, well, I mean, at that point, it was still like on the side. Like, it was, Eric had a full-time job. I had a full-time job. I was slinging transmissions.
When did you guys actually get the shop?
So we got a letter on the door one afternoon that was like, hey, you have 15 days to cease and desist, or it's $150 a day if you continue operation. So Eric called up the town of Cary and was like, hey, where did I get this notice? We definitely don't do any of that kind of work at that shop. We just build engines and transmissions. We don't do installs. We've seen your website, sir. Oh, yeah. Okay. So my bad. I guess we're going to cease and desist and find another place to work. So we sat down and he was like, how badly do you want to do this? Like, do we want to go rent a space? And I was like, yeah, fuck it. I probably have enough I can do at night that we can afford a cheapish space. So we did. We found like this little cheap commercial space in a little strip mall, not even a strip mall, but like a commercial strip in the back of this road. Like it was only $1,200 a month, like single bay, tiny little office bathroom. Yeah. Oh, it's absolutely. We did, however, splurge on like the $6,000 rotary at the time, because he did end up getting me the 12,000 pound dual control asymmetrical. We still have it. It's my favorite lift. But yeah, like we ended up splurging on the fancy rotary for the new shop, and because we just decided we were gonna go for it. And we were there for several years, and I was still at the dealer. Like I was a golden boy with Subaru at that point. Like again, I was going around to other dealers, like trying to help them sort shit out. And then one day, my service manager, like we had a little bit of a dry spell. And so the service manager, technically, he had kind of circled back around. He was one of the ones that helped find me, and then they had moved him to another store, and then another store after that, and they kind of brought him back around to try to clean up the place after a few years. So I'd been there for 3 years since they had opened. I had helped open the place, like did the damn grand opening and all that stuff. So this dude comes back around, and I thought we were on good terms. Like, again, he was one of the guys that was instrumental in like finding me and bringing me over to that dealer. And like the first 6 months were fine, but then after that, he was like, you could tell he was starting to get like antsy about stuff. So he calls me in his office one day and he's like, hey, I was just wanting to let you know, we're going to start putting the special tools in the parts department. I'm going to need you to sign them out. I was like, I am your senior tech shop foreman for Subaru, and you want me to sign my own tools out? And he's like, well, the Subaru special tools. So I was like, my tools. Yeah, those tools. He's like, well, yeah. We're just worried about stuff going missing. I was like, has anything gone missing? He was like, no, not that I know of. But, that's the thing. We don't know. I was like, all right, man, I get it. So he had basically thought like, we were borrowing tools to do our shop things at night.
Yeah.
And then I showed up the next day with like a $2,000 receipt for like all of the transmission tools I'd bought and a bunch of engine tools. I was like, yeah, here you go. Funny thing that there's my receipt for the special tools that I've already bought. I don't need to borrow anything. He's like, oh, well, let's still sign them out just for everybody's comfort. Oh, okay. A few months after that, he called me in. I'd kind of been I started tracking all my stuff. So he calls me in and he's like, hey, you know what this is? He just hands me like this piece of paper. I was like, I don't know. He's like, oh, it's a lost customer list. What do you think about that? And I was like, I don't know. What are you asking me? It's like, well, I'm kind of wondering how many people might be coming over to you are on this list. And I was like, oh, wait right here. I went back to my toolbox and came back with this like whole log for like 2 months of where I copied down everyone's car I'd done and everything I'd done. And then I said, see these ones with stars? He's like, yeah. I was like, those people came to me to get services done shortly after I did install work because I'm too busy doing install work to do service work anymore. So they had to come here for me to do service work. I was like, there you go. How's that for your lost customer list? That lasted about a week and a half before he still got salty. And he called me in again. He's like, yeah, I think you know why you're in here. I was like, yeah, pretty sure. I've already.
This is what happens when you try to mix businesses, though.
It is.
And you can't do that. You can't do it.
Yeah, it had worked out for a few years, and I thought I could continue to keep feet in both pools, but nah, it just he brought it to a head. Subaru of America was already kind of pushing me, like, hey. It's cool that you do this because like I would go down to training at Subaru of America in my Forester. I actually ended up buying that Forester that split the transmission in half shortly after he split the transmission in half. Like I put a Baja transmission in it and then bought the car. So like I would drive it down to training because it was the most reliable thing I had. So I would drive it down to training and it was like, HKS fart cannon out the back and like, I'd thrown some more stuff at it. It was dumped on a set of F&O1RCs and had like Brimbos front and rear.
Oh,
And
nice.
still auto,
Yeah.
blacked out, like, Stormtrooper white, like blacked out, like, and I was an asshole racer in it. Like, it was great. Like, I could do neutral drops and spit fireballs. It was a lot of fun because it had an HKS on it too, like a ball.
Sure.
So it made, I would always get, accosted in traffic by zealous Subaru fans. The best was this girl, like, came up to me to stoplight, was like, make turbo sounds, make more of the turbo sounds. Like, all right, yeah, I got you. So, yeah, a lot of fun. But I would drive it down there, and the head engineer would come find me in class and be like, oh, I thought it was you when I heard that shit bomb show up. I was like, yeah, you still want to ride at lunch? He's like, yeah, is it any faster than it was last time? Yeah, a little bit. Maybe about the same. All right, yeah, we'll go to lunch. I'll come find you. So they had already started talking to me about the deal. They were like, look, you if you want to do that, that's cool. Like, but if you want to be the technician you're kind of on the path of, like, I'd already got my senior master stuff, done all the testing shit to do that, and like got my patch on my jacket. And they were like, look, you're already helping out. Like, do you want to follow a path that will lead you to field service engineer, or do you want to do go fast stuff at night? And I was like, all right, well, I guess I'll kind of make a decision. And then they made it for me by letting me go. So I was like, all right, well, I guess throw me in the briar patch. Like, it's cool. Like, I'm Briar Rabbit. Like, I'll make this work. And it was not easy. Like, it's one of those things where there's that meme of, like, people see a guy riding a lion in the savannah and they're all, ooh, look at that guy. That's crazy. He's riding a lion. I wish I could ride a lion. Like, that's got to be wild, like riding this lion that's just so powerful and awesome. And then I'm the dude on the lion that's like, how in the fuck did I end up on top of this lion? And how can I get off of this lion without killing myself? Or is the lion going to turn around and kill me? Like, what's going on with this? How did I end up on this damn lion? Like, that's me. So, yeah, it took a few years to finally get it right, but we did. Like, we're here.
So, and yeah, so you jumped in, and I mean, that's pretty much where you're at, and
Yep.
you and Eric have been going at it for a while, and it looks like you guys are holding up. And yeah, so now you're running into more modern Subarus. So I saw somebody that when I was still working at Six Star, we helped support at one point, which was Amanda Skelly. So you guys did a little bit of did you help support that team, do some rally stuff with her?
Yeah, definitely. We so she came in. I had an employee named Gino Malinowski that actually, he's the one that I had helped a previous rally driver build a car. That relationship had kind of fallen apart due to one of my employees. We're actually on good terms now, but at the time it was pretty tense. So I kind of walked away from rally for a little while. But
Yeah.
I had an employee that was like, he was still obsessed with NASA and what became ARA. Or ARA became the kind of dominant series. So he was really trying to push to get into that. He was actually working with the previous driver I built a car for. He was like kind of the golden child for a few minutes. Well, he kind of got burned out, and he had already taken on Amanda's next build. Like, he was there. She was at Sandblast in her previous car, and like the back end literally rusted off the back of it during the race.
Some of her original cars were rough just because they were Michigan leftovers.
Yeah,
I mean,
exactly.
they were bad. We donated a leftover engine. We donated a leftover engine to her because, I mean, they had no budget, and they were getting the whole Noble Star thing started because her boyfriend, unfortunately, was really starting to have a budding rally career, and unfortunately died in a pretty nasty accident. That's where
at Olympus,
Matt Marker. Yep, that was a nasty one, and then they kind of decided to continue on in his honor, and that's where that whole thing came from. But they were running on no budget, like no budget at all.
She was on nothing.
Yeah, we were helping Matt
that car
with
rusted in
spares
half
and stuff. Just WRX suspension that we had laying around. Like, here, you can just have it. You know what I mean? Trying to help the guy out. A close friend of mine was actually tuning his car for him. So that's
nice.
That's how we all end up getting mixed up into that. But I see a bunch of pictures on your Facebook, you doing, rallies all over the place. That it looked like you were fairly involved with all of that.
Yeah, we she after the car rusted in half at Sandblast, like Gino looked it over and was like, "There's no way we can put this back together." She found some other shell and then brought it down. Like while he was working with me and Carrie, he was like, "Hey, can we bring this rally car down for this girl Amanda?" I was like, "Yeah, it's cool. We'll take a look at it." He brings it down, and it was not much better. It was another Michigan car. They had like done the rockers in like K-beam, like an actual K-rail. They had cut up a K-rail, and like that was the rocker. We were like, dude, you didn't even, it's still galvanized. What the fuck? Like stick welded in. So we were like, well, this is dangerous. This won't work. She found somebody else's we're going to start building a rally car, and then they didn't finish. So it was a 4-door sedan, 97 sedan. Already had a cage in it, but the cage was not quite up to ARA spec. But it was passable. Like it had a logbook at least. And it had like a 253 with it, and a DCCD 411 Type RA trans, and like a VLSD. So it was a nice little setup. Like already she bought, like it had kind of the right parts. So we got busy trying to put it together and realized like when we got her to fit in the seats, she had to have halo seats. When she fit in the car with the seats, she couldn't actually get out of the car with her helmet on. So we had to stop and have the whole car like pull the cage.
What a nightmare.
Cut it all out. Yeah, it was insane. I had to pull the roof off. Like the dudes we worked with were like super thorough, but they were like, make our lives a little easier if you took the roof off. I was like, oh great, yeah, let me take the roof off this car. So like, all of the fun.
Let me just take the roof
putting
off.
it back on. Yeah, it's cool. Let me drill all 1,000 of these spot welds one at a time, and then I'll pull it off very carefully so it doesn't warp. And then when I go to put it back on, it'll take me 2 days to cross back and forth doing spot welds to put it back on so it doesn't warp. Like, yeah, it was a lot of fun. We did that car took like 4-ish months. But the worst part was we were trying to get ready for NEFR the first year she wanted to go. So I do need to step back. She ended up meeting the owner of Link ECU at some rally event, and he was just enamored by the fact that like her story of like you say the reason she was into rally, she's obviously a female in a very heavily male dominated sport. All of those things. He was like, man, you have a great story.
From a marketing standpoint, that looks fantastic.
Exactly. Yep. So they jumped on board and were like, what do you need help with? And they basically covered a year and a half, 2 seasons worth of entries. They helped her out with the initial build. But massive. We were supposed to go to NEFR. Oh yeah, dude, it's awesome. Again, that's why I got to go do a full 2 seasons of follow the car around and go do crew report, was because I had to have the discussion. I was like, I'm not going to charge you, even though I'm going to be taking time away from my paying job. I'll do that, but I am not paying anything to do it. I was like, you have to make sure I get there, and I have to fly. I can't drive. I can't do the drive because I can't take that time off work. I was like, so you got to make sure I get there. And then, I'm not sleeping in a bed with anybody else or sleeping on the floor. Make sure I have a bed. That's it. Those are my only requirements. I'll eat gas station food. She was like, no, it's cool. But because they were able to help out with some of those expenses, she was able to afford to do that. And we did. We had there are some great stories from that season. She got third, a national podium, third place a few years ago. The first season we actually did the full season. And we didn't get to do West Coast races. That was a little disappointing, but there was no way we were trying to tow a car to Olympus.
I've only done one West Coast race. I mean, that I can truly call West Coast. It was all the way to, Laguna Seca this last year. And people don't understand the expense of getting there and back. Not including anything to do with the track, just getting there and back was crazy expensive.
Yeah. And we talked to them about that, maybe doing one West Coast race for the second season, but then she started having We had a couple issues with the transmission the second year, so it was like, it may not be worth like pushing quite so hard. Like, let's just finish and see where we end up. And it was still fine. Like, she ended up like 4th that year. But yeah, like we had to make those judgment calls a couple times where it was like, is it worth doing 1 or maybe 2 of those races? And the math just never quite added up. Nobody was able to take like a week off on each end to take the car there and bring it back.
Yeah,
it was a lot. Like, even just doing the races we did, like, I'm not a big long haul kind of guy. I can do about 6 hours, 8 hours in a car at a time. I prefer to do it at night. Like, I don't necessarily like to ride. But yeah, like there were a few times it was like, we did LSPR, Snowdrift, all those Michigan races. The car lives here, so it was the car from North Carolina back to Michigan.
That's brutal. So like, I still consider Gingerman as my home track, but I live in Tennessee now, and the car is in Maryland. Okay, and like, it's
so
brutal.
Now you get that
it's brutal, man. It's brutal. So yeah,
logistics,
people don't get
logistics.
that. The logistics of it are the worst. So that's one of those things. If you ever do get into racing, connections really help. You can, pair up with people or whatever and try to, try to share some of that. That's one of the things a couple of the guys that race with us, I think they do a really good job of. Like ASM, they have all of their like team, and then they just bought this giant, like, I think they could put like 7 or 8 cars on it. Yeah.
Yes.
Those big metal things that are like stacking, and then they have one truck drag the shit out of that, and another one drag a trailer full of tools, and everybody just throws in on the fuel and stuff. But
the best is every once in a while, one of those mega teams will show up at Sandblast. Like, you're used to seeing Subaru of America show up with like a pretty good effort, and then for several years you had Barry McKenna, like more or less trying to take it to Subaru. Like,
they had the money.
Like, yeah, exactly. Like, that dude lays pilings. Almost all of the concrete that is underwater in New York, he has done. So like, he was like, I'm going to import a bunch of R5s and R3s and R4s. Like, one year he tried to campaign like 4 different cars, including he had like an R5 for himself. Like, it was nuts. And they're showing up with like big toter homes to transport all 4 or 5 cars and like have the big crazy full service setups. And you're just like, man, that's awesome. And then again, like, you got a Sandblast once a year, a NASA event, and it's not quite the same thing, but it's way more laid back, way more fun. But when the big giant toter home shows up and has nowhere to park, you're just like, yeah, you came to the wrong race, buddy.
Yep.
I love that shit. Like, to see the dude's like, oh, you brought your double stacker to bring your what is that? An 08 STI? Oh, okay. All right. I mean, it seems like a lot, but okay.
It seems like some overkill. That was always one of my favorite things to see at Snowdrift, because the conditions were so bad that like ridiculously prepped cars, like
it's such a gamble.
Equalized so much that you like complete dump boxes, sometimes from multiple classes below, were fighting for overall wins against like Subaru of America.
Yes, like, yes, because. Man, after dark, it's not Snowdrift. Just call it Black Ice Drift and be honest with your advertising. Like, every year I had gone, it was rough. Apparently last year it wasn't bad. It didn't even snow. It was like mostly slush.
Mud drift sucks. I've been to a few of those.
Exactly. There you go. Mud drift. Yes. Oh man. Yeah, like that. Apparently this year was a mud drift year. We'll see how it goes in a couple weeks, like, because that's coming up. I did I did one during the polar vortex, and so it was like -50. Like, we got out there and we did the night service on the first night. And she comes in. We didn't have a roof for she was like, yeah, we're gonna get a bunch of tarps, and we got tarps to build walls for the pop up, and then forgot the damn canopy back in Detroit. So we're in Atlanta. So her boyfriend had to like drive back down to Detroit to go pick up the top for the pop up. So she comes in for the night service, and we got like a propane heater. It wouldn't light off because it was too cold. Like, the switch broke
Yep.
We had like a 12 volt, like little 12 volt hooked up power supply hooked up to this Nissan that we had running, so that we would have something warm to sit in. And the terminals on it broke before we could even plug it in. Like they broke off in our hand. She came in hot and like just locked up the car on the ice and on the tarp and just slid the car 8 inches, like rolled over my impact, hit the jacks. We got the service done. We couldn't really do anything. We got it back on the ground though, and went to go out, and the back brakes had frozen up. Like the ice had melted between, because she had 2-pot, 4-pots. So like the 2-pots in the rear are actually tighter to the wheel than the 4-pots in the front. So like they had all of that mush. I had scrapers on it and everything, but like all of that slush had refrozen. So the back wheels were locked up when she had to leave. So we're running up to time control, yelling at her like, the back wheels are working. Like she's just dragging them through the parking lot because we're like running real close to time. So she's like third in line for time control. And I'm like, she rolls down the window. I'm like, the back wheels are frozen up. And she's like, what do we do? I was like, I just need a screwdriver. And this dude from time control is like, I can't help you. And I was like, okay. And he's like, no, listen, I can't help you, but that's my car. And there's a toolbox in the back and there's a screwdriver on top. Go get it. And I was like, oh, got it. Ran over and chipped the ice out of the wheels as she's rolling forward for time control. It was fantastic. And all at, negative 40 degrees. It was great.
So
and I totally was not prepared.
I've always been
not prepared at all. I had like an A1 parka. That was it.
Yeah, you not for that. I've always been a believer that rally has not been presented right to the U.S. public or in a way that would be engaging for a television like show. And I believe it's because they try to present it like it's NASCAR or some other type of motorsport, and they need to present it like it's Street Outlaws, where you need to really closely follow certain. This is why people watch the Subaru documentary. This is why launch control has gotten so big.
Yes.
Is because next to none of it is them driving. It's all of what it took to get there and the interviews and them working on shit. Like
real drama.
That's the meat and and rally is all drama. And that's rally's so cool. And I think you would get a whole new generation getting excited about rally if
one of my other favorite stories is we were at STPR. Right. And so Waste Management sponsors STPR, like they're pretty much the primary sponsor for STPR now. And so they will run several stages in the active landfill that they maintain outside of Wellsboro, Pennsylvania. Right. And so some of the stages are on what they call the Pennsylvania Grand Canyon. And like you're literally trying to do, don't cuts on like, hey, that's the actual Grand Canyon. And that's like, a 300-foot drop. Like, let's not do that. But you're back doing a couple stages that, basically so the crew guys can watch, in the actual landfill. So we're crewing in the, we're doing service in the landfill, which was interesting because like you could look across the side of the mountain and like there are dudes filling in an active landfill. And we're like, wonder what's underneath us. So, that was interesting. But we ran all day was fun. About midday, she's like, hey, we need to get a tire mounted. I'm burning up the left rear. I was like, yeah, you definitely are. We'll talk to the guys at All Wheels Driven. We'll go up there and see what's going on about maybe getting a tire mounted tonight. They would basically open up their shop for the evening between the 2 days of STPR, which was fucking awesome. Yeah. So we go over, talk to them. The owner is driving, like he's just hanging out in like his 91 Legacy Turbo, like that's all modded out, and he's like just shooting the shit with everybody. So go over, talk to him. He's like, yeah, just come by. We usually like we're there after about 6. He's like, but I won't be there until after the last stage. So like I won't be there till 11. And I was like, but you guys can get in before that. Oh, okay, cool, no problem. Well, we're gonna try and run these last stages, so we'll see you then. Best laid plans. So she started hearing noise. We started picking up like wheel bearing play in the left rear. And we were like, well, we can't fix it. I don't have a loaded knuckle ready to go. I was like, I have parts, but we never put together a loaded knuckle. Like we'd already used it. So it was like, I got to put this together. I got to do some press work, and then I got to put it on the car. I was like, just run it. So we decided we were going to try and finish the first day, and then we would fix everything at all wheels driven that night. Well, the second to last stage, she made it to the end, and the left rear caught on fire. Like the bearing had gone so bad, it caught on fire. And then it torched the seals for the caliper. So then every time she hit the brakes, it put brake fluid onto the fire. So, it's feeding the fire with brake fluid. So when she came in for time control, try to stop the car didn't really want to stop. So I put a hydro in the car, but I made sure I kept the cross channels. So she actually has 2 masters on her hydro, which people are like, why do you have 2 masters? Because I kept the cross channels of the car. She had pedal. She only had a 1/2 inch, but that 1/2 inch is the other 2 channels of the brakes. So left front and right rear. So the car still braked correctly. But she came to the end, and everybody starts yelling at her that there's a fire. She jumps out and they spray it off, and she calls over. She's like, yeah, the car caught on fire. I was like, okay, well, we're gonna go tow it over to all wheels driven and see what's going on. And we did, and then that was honestly a pretty interesting evening. One of the guys there was also a part-timer at Advance, and like we had to switch back out. Like I didn't have a spare 2-pot, so we were like, we need to switch back to just regular brakes. And they were like, cool, we'll go get you calipers. What do you need? Calipers? Yeah, calipers. I need a knuckle because this knuckle is destroyed. They're like, yeah, we'll dig a knuckle out of the back. They went to the scrap pile, dug out a knuckle, sandblasted it, pressed my bearing for me. Brought it back over to me while I was, working on the car on the lift. I was like, wait, what is this? They're like, oh, it's your knuckle. It's ready to go. Except that it was the wrong size or wrong side. We had to do it all again, but it was cool. Their lead tech, like he's this grumpy Subaru guy, and he's in his Subaru tech shirt. And like, I take off my hoodie, and I'm like, hey, do you have a blah, 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 whatever, like some little small tool. And I have like all of my toolkit with me. But I was like, hey, I need kind of one of these. And he's like, yeah, it's over here. It's on my toolbox. And he's kind of watching me. And I get going. And a few minutes later, I'm breaking out so my parents worked for Black & Decker DeWalt for 40 years. So like everything I have is yellow. Like I won't have Milwaukee stuff because I have shares and stupid ass Stanley.
I get it.
But so I have all these DeWalt power tools. And I'm like, I look over and he's like perked up, and I look over and he's got the same thing, and I was like, oh, hey, have you seen the new one? And he's just like, oh yeah, let me see that. Yeah, he ended up coming over and helping me like put the car back together, like the whole 9. It was fantastic. Like we were there till 1 in the morning. Yes, exactly. Bonding over tools, bonding over sticking this shit box together. RKT was there. Mark Patowski was there. Like it ended up being like this kind of almost party atmosphere, even though everybody was there for shitty reasons, but it was a lot of fun. The next day at 6 a.m. though, bolting up my boots, I had like that moment of reflection of like, how did I get here? What decisions did I make that led me to be sitting in a cabin in the middle of the woods of Pennsylvania, like at 6 in the morning to go work on this car? So yeah, but it was awesome.
Yeah, but now you got a story.
The story, exactly.
The worst times in motorsports when you're pulling all-nighters and you're hating life, and you're like, man, when you're in the middle of it, all you want to do is like go to bed, and you're like, why don't I have this normal life? And then you start having conversations with people with normal lives, and then you start to realize you're happy you have this crazy life.
Exactly. Yep. No, that's exactly it too. And like I say, I am the type of person that I love those stories, So like we'll tell an NEFR story. Hey, you said not to use names. Are you absolutely sure I can't use names?
Hey, you do what you want to do. It's on you.
So some of my other favorite memories are like the after party at NEFR is always a pretty good time. Like you said, Snowdrift too. Snowdrift after party, fantastic.
I'm telling you, we're the reason. We are the reason. Me and my group are the reason that at Snowdrift, the resort stopped being open during Snowdrift because we would rent 3 or 4 of the cabins and throw the most insane rager parties for like 3 days straight. I drifted around Ken Block. That happened. That was a true story. It was his first year for Ford, and he crashed. Like he crashed out like right away, and he was on his way back as we were leaving for the stages, and I was leading our group out. And he's on his way back. He's got this big like Ford Excursion, I'm assuming they rented, and his daughter is on the freaking driver's seat with her hands on the wheel, basically kind of like play driving. She was little. Wow. I'm assuming that was Leah. And
I was gonna say
I come slide by in my plug eye, and I'm looking at Ken Block through my windshield as he's looking at me through his side window, watching me slide by him. And then I didn't really like quite notice who it was. It was just a dude in a fucking big ass Excursion with a kid on the wheel. I'm like, holy shit, there's a kid on that wheel. And one of my buddies comes through the radio, and they're like, dude, you just drifted by Ken Block. And you know what? That made my year. That happened. So,
yes. One of my favorites was the foot race, Travis Pastrana, absolute competitor. One night at NEFR Awards, like something broke out where, hey, we have to go outside and do a foot race. And it was like him and wasn't another driver. It was somebody else's crew chief. But yeah, they had to do like multiple foot races to decide who was the champion of the drunken foot race parking lot racing. So yeah, it was fantastic. That same night, David Higgins was like, he was way 2 sheets in the wind and just like ran around a corner and asked us what we were doing, and then like grabbed my buddy's beer and then ran off. It was just fantastic. That's one of the drivers for Subaru brothers, America.
If they get together post rally, go hard. Yes, like you are not prepared.
Way hard.
We're talking like cops are getting called,
dude. Yes, yes. No, they're going to make sure the cops don't get called, but the hotel has to make sure. Like, they're like, no, it's fine. Everything's fine. Don't show up and arrest this awesome Irish rally driver. It's fine. Just stay home.
Isle of Man.
And then just the Irish dudes in general, like, those dudes are always off the hook.
Yeah.
They're just, yeah. Love rally. That's just, it's to your point, like, watching the time attack stuff, like, that sparks some of that same kind of like excitement.
That's kind of the vibe
to be the fanboy, but like
the Grid Life paddock gets like that, and it reminds me a lot of what I saw in the paddocks back in the day when I was watching rally. 07, I think, was the first year I went to a snowdrift. But I'd been following it for years before, and that was I don't think it was SCCA Pro Rally. I think it had changed to Rally America at that point. It was like one of the first Rally America events.
Yeah.
And
and that's the other downside to Rally in America is, nobody can get their shit together and organize for more than 5 minutes. ARA is doing a great job, but they're having the usual rule back and forth trouble. Like, every racing organization, you get to go into their chat groups or their Facebook groups and watch the drama when the rules come out. Like, it's always fun.
Yeah, and these are just a bunch of guys having a great time, and they're all friends. And it's when you're looking at it from the outside, you're like, these are, these epic, these are these giants of whatever they're doing, whether it be rally or whatever. And then I have people who will talk to me the same way I would look at that about time attack and what we're doing in like street mod or whatever. And they talk about like me and Jackie Gang and all these guys and how like the same way. And I'm just like, we're just dudes doing our thing, but at that point they were just dudes doing their thing. There was a time when nobody knew who the hell Ken Block even was.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
Exactly. Like what I think one of my favorite stories
that it was a surprise that Travis is driving a rally car.
Like the first year that those two were there, they like everybody was lined up to, jerk off Travis Pastrana because he was the first like massive, celebrity to come out and do this. And I sat and had this extraordinarily long conversation with Tanner Faust during the park expose because Nobody else knew who he was. We had a great time, dude. Tanner's a great dude. We talked about stunt driving. We talked about like how they pick you for movies to like, and like what approaches you needed. Dude, he was just gonna stand there. You know, I was like, dude, I feel like I'm taking all your time. He's like, dude, I'm just gonna stand there. Nobody knows who the hell I am. And
that's awesome.
Then he's on Top Gear, and I'm like, I hung out with that guy, and we still like if I ever run into him again, which I've seen him at events and stuff, I'm like, oh hey, you know, we chatted up. It was the same thing with, and I know I'm wandering in all sorts of shit, but Dave Mirra was actually kind of local to you guys.
Yes, he was.
Dave Mirra,
dude, 1 year.
My Dave Mirra story is ridiculous. So
go for it. Yes, because I have a Dave Mirra story that is also ridiculous. So yes, dude, lead us in.
So either way, like I'm at this autocross and it is pouring on us and it's complete shit, right? And it's behind this stupid ass mall. All right. And so somewhere, I think it was around New Bern. Okay, we're at this dumb mall.
Yep.
Either way, North Carolina, somewhere out in that area. Yep. So we're at this mall, and there's me I've got my turbo Subaru, and there's this shorter dude named Dave and some like taller, skinnier guy that I do not remember his name. Okay. Which is probably some other sort of skateboardy whatever. So we end up having to work the course together, and I don't even know who this guy is. It's just some dude named Dave, and we're getting poured on. And I know he's in a Mustang, so I start giving him shit. I'm like, dude, I was
gonna ask if he was in his Mustang.
I'm gonna eat you alive here. And he's like, nah, dude, no, it ain't even gonna be like that. I'm like, I had my buddies go buy us some ponchos from Walmart that was near there. So I hooked Dave up with a poncho or whatever. Long story short, we were just about to go drive, right? We worked the course and then we're about to go drive. We're all soaking wet and miserable. And I'm pulling up to the line, and one of the people there, one of the guys working the grid, noticed that I was missing a lug nut. I didn't even know I was missing a lug nut. I went through tech and everything, and nobody said anything about me missing a lug nut, but I was missing a lug nut. So they come up, and they're like, hey, you're missing a lug nut. You can't run. I'm like, okay, not a big deal. I'm going to go get a lug nut. Is that okay? No, you're disqualified. I can't even make this up. And I'm like, what? They're like, yeah, unfortunately you're disqualified.
Autocross
and
guys.
you're not going to be able to run. I'm like, well, this is so like Dave is behind me and starts losing his shit on these dudes. So like I'm screaming at the guy, Dave's screaming at the guy. I'm ripping my tape off my car because that's how my numbers were on. Throwing the tape at people, like, dude. Dave's like, "Fuck you guys, I'm leaving too. Fuck these dudes." And like, dude, we went total like punk ass skater on these guys. Which, like, looking back at it now, being older, like I was that punk kid, you know, and Dave was that punk kid, and we all leave and we're all pissed off. Years later, like guys hit me up. There was dudes with me that were at this event, and they're like, dude, you and Dave Mirra were going nuts. And I'm like, Dave Mirra? And they're like, yeah, like BMX dude. I'm like, yeah, I know. He's got like a video game and all that. Yeah, I know who Dave Mirra is. Yeah. Dude, that was Dave Mirra. I'm like, holy shit. I had no idea it was Dave Mirra. Okay. So Dave Mirra's driving for Subaru years later, and he's up at Snowdrift. And I walk up to him like, hey, dude, do you remember we were in like New Bern, North Carolina or something, and we were at we were doing an autocross, and he's like, oh shit, you were the dude in the WRX, man, fuck those guys. And we're surrounded by people, right? And he drops everything he's doing. He's like, fuck those dudes, I remember that shit. And like, this is like 10 years later, and David's still punk ass BMX dude, just like, fuck those guys, man. He's like, oh shit, how are you doing? And like, dude, like we had just talked 10 minutes ago. The guy barely knew me, and he still remembers this story. And every year I'd go talk to him, Dave would be like, yeah, fuck those dudes. And it was crazy, dude. I was so bummed when he died. Yeah. Nicest guy, but I mean, if you got a Dave Mirra story, I gotta hear it. Dave's the best.
The first year I went to SEMA, we like I had the little invite to go to the Subaru booth. Like, hey, meet over at the Subaru booth. Like, we'll kind of let you through the line before we start letting people through to do autographs and stuff. Because like one of my like former district field reps was like he was working the show, like that was his little reward or whatever. So he was like, yeah, come on through early, like this is what time we're getting started, so like be over here like 20 minutes early. So we get over there, and one of the guys that's with me is my buddy Mark, and he used to work at a Mustang shop in Cary, like the only Mustang shop in that part of North Carolina in like the late 90s. So he had worked at this Mustang shop, and like, he had helped to build his dad's Mustang. Like, he's not really a Mustang guy, but he was kind of a Ford guy for a minute. And so we go over and we get to the Subaru booth, and here's Dave Mirra. Like, he's the one they have doing autographs, and like they go to introduce us. And my buddy Mark is like, hey Dave, I don't know if you probably don't remember me, but like once, like a really long time ago, you and your brother came into town. It was like one of your, like when you like got one of your first checks, like big checks. You came into town to Cary and bought a bunch of Mustang parts for you and your brother's Mustang. Dude, he stopped and was like, yes, I do remember you. You're Mark. And he was like, yeah, I'm Mark. And he was like, yeah, oh dude, man, we, and started talking about him and his brother's Mustangs. We were there talking for 30 minutes. They had to hold the people for autographs like 10 minutes so Dave Mirra would continue, like, because he just didn't want to stop talking to us.
Dude, if he didn't give a shit what was going on, he was going to be Dave. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Exactly. Dude,
if he wanted to talk about ripping tape off of autocross cars and yelling at people, or if he wanted to talk about Mustangs, that's what was happening.
Yeah, that's what he's going to do. Yeah, exactly. It was fantastic. Like, the Subaru guys are like standing over there with like their arms crossed looking at us, and I'm just like, I can't stop the dude. It's cool. Like, yeah, but he was like inviting us. He was like, you guys are still in North Carolina? I was like, yeah, we're still in North Carolina. He's like, man, okay, well, I'm doing the GRC race like a couple weeks from now. Like, you guys should just go up there to Jersey, meet up with me, and like, we'll just party. Like, dude, you guys need a place to stay? You can stay with our RV. Like, I'm going to bring the big family RV, and like, man, worst case, I got like tents and stuff. You guys can just camp out with us. Like, you should just come up there, and then we'll just come back like the next weekend. We were like, dude, are you really like inviting us to go tour with you like on GRC? And he's just like, yeah, you should definitely do that. We didn't make it to New Jersey, but we did like try to hook up with him later on, and it was just a little bit too hectic to try to do scheduling. But like, it wasn't that long after that.
Was his personality though, dude. News. He was the nicest guy.
Yeah,
and like it was
really
weird. He was from like super subdued, like mega chill, until you just got past that like first level of armor, and then he was like all for it. He was all in, and it was like he was such a cool cat, man. I really, really dug that guy.
Yeah, I miss that dude. Like, again, like I say, it wasn't too much longer after that he's gone, and I just, man, it killed us. Like, my buddy Mark was the one that found out first, and just was like, man. Dave's
man, gone. when I heard that really fucked with me for a couple of weeks, honestly. Just he was such a great guy, and you would have never thought. You know what I mean?
No. I mean, I love seeing all the Bucky stuff, but like, and I had an old Bucky board like back in the day, like an OG Bucky board when he was like 16. And I love that. I love it. And he. But I haven't met him in person, so like I can't speak to. I've heard he's super awesome in real life, but like
Bucky's a good dude. I've met him a few times.
It was awesome.
Bucky's a decent dude. It's one of those things like Dave kind of flew under the radar with the Subaru stuff because he wasn't running open class. Man, he was great. Do you remember that ad campaign they did with where he had the people in the car, like he drove them around. I forgot what they were called. It was like Just Go Fast or something. They were handing out tennis balls that looked like their face was getting... Get more G's, yeah. Yeah, that was...
Get more G's. I think I still have one of those somewhere.
Yeah, those... Man, that was crazy. All right, well, that was a blast and pass. Let's talk about another blast and pass. Just before we started this podcast, I proposed a little test. Now, both of us are pretty OG. That means both of us were on NASIOC, and we were big talkers on NASIOC, both in our own particular areas and whatever. And one of the old things we used to do, and it was kind of like showing your rank at one point, is what was your member number on NASIOC? Now, both of us also immediately said, look, we were around during the iClub NASIOC split.
Yes.
This is getting way old for some of y'all. And both of us hung out on iClub for a while, probably quite a bit longer than we probably should have. Yeah. And therefore, we missed the initial big jump over to NASIOC. So, did you get your member number?
And I can't. It still won't let me log in, and it just gave me the 5 attempts. Now I have to wait 15 minutes. So
are you gonna? Yeah, okay, no. I'm gonna look your ass up. I'm gonna look your ass up. What is your member name?
Old School with a K, WRX.
Old SKOOL WRX.
WRX. Yep. Because had a GC. Man, I'm interested to see what you find.
Come on, baby. Oh, come on. This is one of the reasons these are failing.
Oh, it won't let you find it?
Okay, hold on. No. It was taking a real. Okay, I found you. Hold on. Pulling it up. And NASIOC's just really slow these days.
Yeah, it really is.
On boot.
I hate that it's kind of falling apart because it's just.
You think you got me or not?
No, I don't think so. Because, like I said, that was my second username. Like I'm pretty sure. Like it was.
I mean, I'm gonna give you this. Even if that was your second username, you're pretty OG. Okay, like you can definitely claim OG, but your member number is 66,248. Which would have put you after the bug eye clout came through, but before STI.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah.
So my member number, because I fart dust, is damn near half yours at 37078. Yeah. And even then I showed up late.
How long did you stay on iClub before you went over to NASIOC? Like a year?
Yeah, probably. Probably a year, maybe even a year and a half, something like that. It was a long time. And then I had the user, like I needed to sign into NASIOC because I wanted to look at some or post on something. But the majority of what I did was still on iClub for a very long time until you quickly started to realize everything on iClub was just linked from NASIOC. And I'm like, this is stupid.
Yeah.
So I stopped. Yep. I don't even remember the last time I tried to go to iClub.
Yeah, same here. Like once it, like
Josh
you say,
Aldridge, and this was on dial-up. I mean, at one point there was times I had to use dial-up to go to NASIOC. Yeah.
Yes. Oh, you wait about 10 minutes to log in. It'll be fine.
Oh man, you remember having to give people 56K warnings on large pictures?
Yes, that's right. Oh. Well, then the downside is everybody started linking to photo buckets, and then there's no photo bucket anymore. So everything's gone.
Went under, and it broke. It broke NASIOC. Like a lot of these pictures that you needed are gone. It sucks, man.
Yep.
It was such a great resource, and it's unfortunately
it really was, man. Like there one of the best write-ups about how FA WRX AVCS works is the write-up on NASIOC where the dude went and pulled a bunch of mechanism and function pages out of the Subaru manuals, and like the best explanation. Like when I went to first start, like, okay, I'm a little nervous about the fact you can retard the damn cams on a WRX. Like that seems a little weird. Why would I need to do that? And the write-up was fantastic and totally gave me a good
still,
like, hey, all right, here's what I can do and here's what I should do.
There's still great info on NASIOC. Like one of the things I still link people to is the Unabomber's Manifesto on NASIOC.
Yes.
Because there's so much,
and the turbo chart.
Some of it's outdated, but man, the core of whatever the posts and stuff in it's good. It's really good info. It's really good info, and I can't if you're new to this stuff, it's something you really should look into.
Yeah, like Subaru 101. It's really
that's really what it is. It's aftermarket Subaru 101.
Yep, exactly. So yeah, and then the turbo chart, I still reference some of the stuff on the turbo chart. I mean, it's way out of date now too, but like, man, there's still some stuff that's accurate. Or like IDing a JDM engine, I still do use some of that thread to like when we got a version 8 like RA engine one time, and I was like, I want to make sure it's actually an RA, and I was like, went through and measured everything based on that thread. I was like, oh, it really is.
Have you ever seen H25 heads?
No. What is an H25 head?
Oh man. So just hearing, you're gonna love this because I found this out the other day. And again, I've been doing this a minute and I've seen some shit. Okay. So it's really hard to stump me. I had a customer hit me up. He's like, I got H25 heads. I'm looking at a block. I need to know the right one, yada yada yada. So I'm thinking H25, what would you assume that would go to? Just off top of your head.
I'm gonna go with it's a single overhead cam variant, or is it not?
Well, first off, let's just start with a 25. What would you assume?
Okay, yeah, it's got to be a 2.5.
You would think, right? An H25 is a turbo 2-liter head. It was on like the really early EJ20Xs.
Oh,
really
no
early
shit.
EJ20Xs.
Wow.
Yeah, really early ones that and like they changed the casting later on, so there's not a ton of them, but it is a 2-liter head. So if you ever see an H25,
you know what? Somebody was trying to sell me some of those the other day. Actually, a buddy of mine, Edwin, was trying to sell me a set of H25s. I was like, "What the fuck are those?" He was like,
"They're actually good heads. They have, if I'm right, they have big ports too." Just letting you know.
That's what he said. He was like, "Yeah, that's not the same as a regular 20." I was like, "Is this one of those?" So he had a
but it's not a 2.5 liter head; it's 2 liter.
That's crazy. That's crazy. So he said the combustion chambers would work for a 2.5. I don't know how accurate he is. I was like, well, what are the CCs? And he never gave me that. And I ended up with a different set of like whatever, just regular W25s like at the machine shop. So I was like, all right, yeah, I don't need those. Thanks though.
I mean, just so you know.
That's wild though. That's funny. I would have never guessed that's what those castings are. Like that's funny.
Oh, I'm dude. Wow. Yeah, it was madder than hell. Madder than
that
hell.
Damn engine. That damn engine. That damn 20X20Y. Just the bane of some of my existence.
Dude, man, and how they're just getting shoved into all sorts of random crap by these crap shops because they're getting them for like $1,500. Then they'll flip them and then they'll drive around without a tune or anything. They'll blow up and then they show up to you thinking they got like
they drive like shit.
It's an STI. That it's driving like total shit. All I need is a tune. No, you need a little more.
Yeah, need a little more. We have to have the discussion. Hey, what did you do for the cams? What now? What do you mean? What did I do with the cams? Oh, so you just unplugged those exhaust cam solenoids? He's like, yeah. Like, I'm not gonna tune that. I'm not gonna fuck with it. Like, you need to fix it, or you can pay us to fix it, and then they don't like that price either, because that was the whole point. Was like, well, I threw this in there because it was the budget option for my GR-WRX. I was like, that's the wrong choice, sir. The only time I have actually liked it was we have a customer that has a 2009 Legacy GT, or no, 2008 Legacy GT wagon, that somebody did everything but right-hand drive swap it to put all of the JDM like before whatever the weird version of like above a GT. So it has like a proper 20X20Y with it's running on a 2010 STI computer, ECM, like they wired it all to work right. So yeah, the cluster works, everything works correctly. It's like driving a left-hand drive Japanese Legacy GT. It's super cool. And then now he's like, yeah, I need to tune it. I'm having some weird little issues. And we're like, okay, well, an access port still works, so we're gonna put an access port on it and tune it. But that's the only one that we're like, yeah. Out of the box, this was done correctly. We don't have to do anything but tune it.
Yeah.
But literally everyone else, it's like, I just need you to tune it now that I got it in the car. You're like, no, not at all.
So what are you messing around with these days? What's your go-to? What do you got any fun projects popping out in the future here? What's going on?
Steve's elbow deep in a bunch of the usual, like we would consider usual engine work. Like we average like 1.5 kind of engine jobs a month, maybe a little more. He's kind of slammed with just like that, just regular in and out, what we would consider in and out, which is kind of sad to say for, a shop that like your in and out work is engine builds in turbo cars all the time, but it is what it is. As far as me, like I'm just trying to do a little more to run the shop than work in it.
Sure.
Like I am still buried in some shit right now. Like I've got like diag on a shitty 06 XT that I'm pretty sure a rat gnawed through part of the harness. So I've been having to do electrical diag. But it's cool. We have a new tech that's working with us. He's younger, like kind of entry level dude. But like is working to learn more than anybody before him, which is super helpful because me and Steve are shitty teachers. Like we're terrible instructors. Like I can't train anybody. Like that hasn't ever worked out. So we're happy that it's working out this time. Like I'm trying to get him like on the right path. Me and Steve have like, I don't know, we're pretty persnickety assholes. Especially me at this point, like to your point, like the 20X thorn in my side. There's a whole lot of thorns in my side because it's like, man, you guys just can't seem to do some of the simple shit right. Like just do this, use the right bolts. Like don't cross thread your plugs. Like just simple shit. Like
please do basic
don't load
things.
the parts scanner. Yes.
Yeah.
Like one of the things that kills me the most that, quick rant about the quote unquote industry, right? The thing that frustrates me about DIY guys these days is they are not the same as they were when they went to NASIOC for write-ups. I don't feel like there's anybody really leading the charge like there used to be. Like the YouTube guys are not fantastic. I like, for diag stuff and just general Subaru knowledge, like Mr. Subaru, he's pretty good. I'm friends with Charles, like humble mechanic, like, but he's a Volkswagen guy, but like, I don't know. I just don't feel like there's really anybody putting out really good information. And the other thing that frustrates me is like, man, if you don't know, like, don't go ask other people that don't know to parrot some shit they read. Like the manual exists and you have access to it.
That is one of the biggest issues that we have. I will say that there is some good and bad to the YouTube side of it.
Yeah.
Don't get me wrong. There's some horrifically bad information from some very large outlets.
Yes.
But then you also have some guys that are smaller that are they're doing their best to do things right. Like and at least doing them, we may have differing opinions on certain things, but they're doing a overall pretty good job. Like Smedia was in here earlier. Smedia is actually like, I think he does a decent job of the stuff that he does. He's going through different generations, and I like that guy. But then you have
his early stuff.
For every one of those,
I'm not a fan of, but his later stuff, absolutely. I loved watching him be very transparent about the problems he had with that 3.3 build, because I'm one of those people that's like, man, you bit off way more than you're going to be able to chew. And he did, but then he walked everybody through that. And dude, that to me, that's been the best wake up call for some certain types of people. Pipe dreamers, right? If your dreams come from a pipe, like probably not great. Like you're probably not going to get them done. But like he definitely was like, hey, I'm going to try and do as much R&D background as I can to even get started on this. And he did. And he tried to reach out to experts. And then watching the problems and being transparent about those problems. Because, there are plenty of channels that only want to show you the wins. So like, that's my favorite thing about his stuff over the last 2 or 3 years.
They either want to show you the wins or they want to turn around and immediately blame it on Subaru being crappy.
Yes.
And that's what really puts,
exactly.
There was a larger outlet that did a thing where they took a couple of Subarus and did some track time with them and then kept repeatedly blowing engines up. And it could have been solved with some very, very simple things that it is. And that did so much damage to the community. And
It really, yeah,
man, that stuff bugs me.
yeah, it really did, dude. I'm on a private technicians, like it's mostly dealer techs, right? But
Yeah.
like, so the meme that's going around with the Gen Z kid in the white shoes, and he's doing all of the stupid Subaru stereotype memes. He's got like a black Hawkeye on a lift, and he's like, "Hey, we're ready to go." His friend is like on the camera, and he walks in, and, "Hey, are you ready to go?" "Yeah, just doing some maintenance on my Subaru." And he's like holding the head gasket. And like, he's like, "Yeah, I just got to do an oil change real quick." And there's like a rod sitting in the oil pan. And then, "Oh yeah, we're about ready to go. I just got to tune for a passenger." I was like, dude, like hit all of the worst, stupidest, bottom level stereotypes all at once. That stupid video, it's come across my feed for 2 weeks. It showed up on the Subaru technicians page, and I couldn't fucking take it. I just lost my shit. I was like, oh good, this is here. Fantastic. Like all of the fucking stupid ass stereotypes. Like, yeah, that shit just grates
what
on
it is,
my nerves.
man.
Yeah.
So
yes,
either way,
there you go.
We had a good time, my dude. We've been going for 2 hours and 50 minutes. Or well, sorry, no. 1 hour and 50 minutes.
1 hour and 50 minutes, yeah.
Either way, we're damn near 2 hours here. I think we're gonna call it. This was a good time. Got a little more insight into where you come from and what you're up to. We need to do this again. I appreciate your input in the Insiders Lounge. If people were to need to get a hold of you, what's the best way to do it? And email. So what do they just? What is your email?
Service@turbotime.us. You can message us on Facebook, but I'm always going to send you to email. And if you call, we're going to probably send you to email. We like to do everything over email so that, we have a log of conversations. Yes, there you go. Yep, that's it. That's the biggest thing. And again, a lot of the stuff we get is like super technical. So, you kind of want to expound a little bit and then them actually be able to reference it, as opposed to telling them over the phone, they forget it 30 seconds later, or, we forget it 30 seconds later. So service@turbotime.us is always the answer.
Sweet. Well, you guys keep doing you, and if there's anything we could do up here at IAG to help you out, let us know. And
for sure, man. I do want to say that, like seriously, IAG has been fantastic. I didn't even get to hit on, I remember taking blocks up there when they first when JJ and Rick first hired Jim Justice. Like, I had been through a machine shop down here trying to get blocks machined and had 4 of them come back. Like, I had to replace 4 engine builds, get the blocks machined and start over, including one I had to send to California. So I was a little upset with my local machine shop, and I had bought torque plates and the whole 9 yards. So yeah, at one point, as soon as Jim Justice left, the other person he was working for that I will not even give credit to, people that know, fuck that guy. Yeah. Anyway, so yeah, when Jim first came over there, I called up and was like, "Hey, what can I do to get some blocks done?" And they're like, "Just bring what you got." And I loaded up a buddy of mine's bug-eye wagon and brought 6 case half sets up there and came back with 4. We were trading out cores back in the day.
Yep.
So yeah,
that was back in the day.
I love you guys. Yes, absolutely. I mean, the old shop. So yeah. When the machines were stuffed in the corner. But yeah, I love you guys. The fact that it's run by enthusiasts, right? Trey Cobb doesn't have anything to do with Cobb anymore. Jeff Perrin doesn't have shit to do with Perrin anymore. JJ still has shit to do with
your
IAG.
favorite person,
IAG
Crawford, no longer has anything to do with Crawford anymore.
Oh, really? Wow, that's actually a surprise. That was actually why I don't have the first username. Is him.
Oh, really? What'd you get into it with Court back when Court was pretty powerful?
Yes. So he came on NASIOC. I was selling an EJ20G. And so I was online friends with Mike Shields at SPD, who is the guy that built Trey Cobb's first swapped car or whatever. So he is the JDM expert. So I'm like, "Hey, I have this EJ20 for sale that I was given by this importer. What can I put in the ad?" And he's like, "Well, it's a G out of an early legacy. So it's actually a really cool block." He was like, "The heads are not that great." He was like, at the time, he was like, "Yeah, sell it for $1,000." And it had a transmission. So he was like, maybe 12. I was like, okay, cool. So I posted it up on NASIOC, and like I got the typical goofballs that like wanted to put it in their bug eye, and I was like, no, you can't really do that. Like you'd have to take it all the way apart. Like, nah, that's not really what it's for. And then Kurt Crawford comes on there, and he's like, that's not a closed deck block. And I was like, well, you know, based on the VIN stamp, it's out of an early legacy, and you know, it's not the G out of the Impreza, which is the open deck version. Like, I'm getting all this from Mike Shields. And he was like, well, you're wrong. He was like, and you're trying to scam people. He was like, you should pull a head off of it to prove it. And I was like, the fuck are you talking about? I'm going to pull a fucking head off an engine I'm trying to sell? What the fuck are you talking about? I was like, no, dude, fuck off. So,
Yeah.
And then I rage quit like NASIOC and left for like a year and a half.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Good
It is
old
what
Kurt.
it is.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep.
So yeah, it just Grimspeed again. Justin Grimm doesn't own it.
Oh wow, I didn't know that either.
Yeah,
Wow.
in fact, Grimspeed's kind of going under right now, which is real sad.
Yeah,
but they got bought out by a larger
seen...
company, and then it's it's a whole mess.
They're part of the buyout. Okay,
yeah.
To me, like that's the catch-22 of like all of this consolidation is like I appreciate the fact that you know Cobb, ECU Tech, all of them have you know ended up getting bought, and you have this bigger and bigger and bigger conglomeration, because what that means for us is that I mean, so it doesn't really help me as directly as I would hope, right? The EPA is still going to absolutely hammer down on mid-size shops because they can usually generate some fines, and B, they know you have at least some kind of money squirreled away that they're going to try and take from you. If you're too small, they don't care because they know you don't have any money. And if you're too big, they know you can hire lawyers and not have to worry about it. And that to me is the best thing about all of the conglomeration is like some of these companies are part of large enough equity firms or funds or whatever you want to call them, ownership that basically says, if the EPA wanted to try to sue any of the individual companies or fine them, they don't have a big enough war chest to win the case. So does it mean that they're going to all go out and do a bunch of non-compliant shit?
The federal government is a very, very powerful entity. And ground zero for that whole thing, ground zero for the entire thing is still the case against that little shop out in Colorado.
Yeah, PRE.
That little Honda shop out in Colorado.
Yeah, yeah.
So PRI got behind that to fight there. Yeah. So either way, man, we're gonna call
lost that case, but they did get it negotiated, so that was cool.
Yeah, I mean, but there was a lot that came from that. A lot of people don't realize there was some nuance that came from that ended up helping us quite a bit. So either way, I gotta go.
Exactly.
I gotta end this thing.
Man.
So
have a good one.
It's been real. It's been fun. It's been real fun. We will see you guys next week. Later.